I have plenty of stories about this, whether it's my own personal work history or dealing with companies that I've worked with. But one, stands out in my mind. And this person wandered around, drank coffee, checked Facebook regularly. I mean, constantly was updating Facebook or social media. And it was fascinating because everybody knew who this person was and loved it when they stopped by and chatted for a minute. But at the end of the day, what did this person actually accomplish? I'm still baffled by that.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Amanda Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Creating an employee experience really is up to you as the leader or manager of these hearts and souls of your organization. I've come here with my special guest, my wife, Amanda Hammett.
Hi.
Amanda is an expert in the future of work, and she really works with the next generation of leaders that are coming in. You want to listen to her podcast, Next Generation Rockstars.
All right, so Next Generation Rockstars is where we bring in some of the top high-performing millennials to talk about what keeps them there. And then the second season was all about leaders and how are they looking at leadership differently? How are they looking at this next generation differently so that they can actually recruit and retain them?
In this special episode, we're going to talk about the 5 types of workers that are hurting your employee retention. Employee retention is such an important conversation today that really, I don't think it's talked about enough.
Oh, no, it is not talked about enough. Or there's not enough focus on doing it right.
And you've got a special framework that you created that goes through the 5 stages or 5 leverage points of this. You call this the collision course.
Absolutely.
What is that?
So the collision course looks at the various points throughout the entire employee lifecycle. So from the very first touch that you have in the recruiting process, all the way until the last time that an employee walks out their door. Where are the points in which employees and their company are clashing? Where are you actually losing them and where are they coming out of your system?
You may be curious about that. We're not going to be talking about the collision course today because this is going to be a little bit more of a fun, lighthearted episode where we talk about the 5 types of employees that are hurting your employee retention. But if you want to understand that collision course, then we've got a training that we have partnered with Velocity Global, a PEO that really has created a great place for you to expand your talented workforce if you're looking at international workers. We're going to really go into some detail here. If you want to make sure that you get the framework that goes along with the training, then go to genehammett.com/stay. That will get you a 1-page document to give you a stay conversation that allow you to really tune in to what employees are doing day in and day out or week to week, and you will be able to connect with it. One of the things inside that will really change the game for you as a leader because no one's doing it. Most people are afraid to do it, but it is a powerful force. Just go to genehammett.com/stay. Now, here is the conversation with Amanda and me on the 5 types of employees that are hurting your employee retention. Employee retention. I really love this conversation because it really is one of the biggest things going on in our workforce. What do you think about employee retention?
This is something I hear over and over and over again. Anytime I'm at a conference speaking or if I'm working with employees or companies, they're always saying, how can we keep more of our employees?
There's a war for talent. You probably feel it because you want to have the best workers. You want to have the most talented. You want them to be a part of the culture. And you want to make sure you're very intentional about creating a kind of work experience that makes it so that they really love to come to work. But employee retention is something that a lot of people kind of like, it's too fluffy, right? It's because it's not something that is on the balance sheet or the P&L. If you had a number on your financials that said exactly what it's costing you because of employee retention, you'd be surprised and you'd pay a lot more attention to it.
Absolutely. The cost of employee retention is staggering. If CFOs knew exactly how much this was costing, it would change the way that companies around the world would operate. Because right now, employee retention is broken up into so many different buckets, whether it's training or management or recruiting costs. It's all broken up. So it's not one specific number. But the thing is that actually, according to Gallup, they estimate that every single year, it costs the American economy over $1 trillion just in employee turnover.
Let me jump in here because that's a big number. Like
It
a
is.
trillion's really big. But let's talk about it from a sense of what is it costing you right now?
So SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, estimates that it actually costs between 1.5 and 2 times that person's salary in order to replace them. So that is the recruiting cost, that is the more soft cost, so like the manager training time, getting that person ramped up. But let's be honest, a lot of the industries that I work with, they have employees that have been there 30, 40 years. That amount of corporate knowledge that walks out the door, it's going to take years and years and years to replicate that into a new person. So that 2 times their salary, I think is easily done.
That's really for knowledge workers. Like if you had someone that was an hourly employee, it's going to be less, but there still is a cost to employee retention.
Oh, absolutely. But even in the hourly space, there are a lot of situations where you have people that have been there 20, 30, 40 years. And so they're taking with them a lot of that knowledge. So it is an ongoing issue.
I had a workshop a few weeks ago that you attended, and one of the clients in there talked about losing, I think he said 25 employees in one month.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think that cost you? And he goes, I know exactly what it cost me because I had to get temporary workers. These are hourly paid. And it cost him $250,000.
In 1 month.
In 1 month. So it is costing you a lot of money, not really understanding this employee retention. So that's the reason why we put together this episode. We've come together, I focus on a different set of clients, which we've already explained. And Amanda has the corporate side of this. But together we've seen this and we want to share with you and make this a little bit fun. So we're going to talk about the 5 types of workers that are hurting your employee retention. So yes. You ready? You excited?
Absolutely. Yeah. These are some good ones. And we've all seen each of these play out in our own careers. So the first one is the micromanager. I mean, come on. We have all seen this time and time again.
I'll be honest. I've probably been a micromanager from time to time. It's easy to be a micromanager because if you're an A player, if you've done the work before, you know exactly what to do and you can actually just tell them. And that's the easiest, quickest thing for you to do is to tell them the exact steps. Is that right?
Right. But I think a micromanager, there's more to it. It's standing over. It's like constantly like in their face. What are you doing now? What are you doing now? And it gets to the point where the employee can't even do their work because they're so focused on responding to you or answering to you that they end up having to spend a lot more time and anxiety invested in just calming you and dealing with you.
This reminds me of a story of one of my clients who, before he became an entrepreneur, was talking about, his manager. And this guy was the traditional micromanager. He was hired to do some marketing for the company. And the owner of the company knew a little bit about marketing, enough to be dangerous, as they say. But he would, second guess everything that was suggested as important or the next steps. And he would, talk about the newsletter and the open rates and why didn't it happen. And I remember one specific detail. He was like, well, I didn't get it. And it was back and forth. And he's like, did you check your spam folder? And he goes, it's not in my spam folder. And then Oliver, guess what? It was in the spam folder. So, there's a lot of different types of managers out there, but the micromanager probably is one of the worst because you think you're doing the right thing, but usually you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I deal a lot with the younger employees, those under 30, early in career. And this is something I hear consistently over and over again is this micromanager and how it's just devastating to your career in a lot of ways. I had a young lady come up to me at a conference recently and she told me about her manager, her former manager. She said that he basically had her sit down at the end of the day, not during the actual work day, but at the end of the day, And she had to write out everything that she did that entire day, broken down into 15-minute increments. Now, keep in mind, this young lady was not an hourly employee. She was a salaried employee, and he expected this to come to his email box no earlier than 6:15. Now, the office closed at 6, but she was not to work on it during the day. And she had to do this every single day. And if she didn't, I mean, there was consequences the following day. Now, I don't think it's going to shock anybody to tell you that she did not last even a year at this company before she was gone. And it all had to do with this micromanager.
I want to make sure we connect the dots here, because the micromanager, you may thinking, how is that hurting retention? Well, you may have heard this before. I think it's just so appropriate, but people don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Absolutely.
And we probably all had bad managers that we reported to that caused us to leave companies. And that is the reason why it's number one on the list. It is probably one of the most common. And it really is something that we wanted to kind of draw you into this, because some of the others are going to be a little bit more, maybe even fun to talk about, because when we came up together, we had a lot of fun putting all these together and just for you.
All right. So the second one is not a micromanager, but a clueless boss. Now, I'm going to talk about this from my own personal experience. I had a boss one time, and I'm not going to name names. However, every single day or every single interaction I had with this person, I would just sit back and ask myself, how in the world did you become a manager? How are you in charge of leading people? And not just one or two, I mean, 50 or 60 people. And I was just flabbergasted daily. You remember those days.
I do. They were stressful because you cried a lot. But I've been through this too. I mean, mine was a little bit different. I respected this manager, but the way they showed up had no regard for the company growing and moving forward. It was just a place for them to it was more like a hobby than it was anything else. And I say clueless because it really did feel like I'm pushing forward the business harder than the owner of the business was. And it really allowed me to reflect on what kind of boss I wanted to be in this whole thing. And I wanted to be the exact opposite.
Absolutely. But I think in that situation, I mean, she actually had personal shoppers coming in. She had no clue literally what was going on in the day-to-day.
She did, but she was just checked out for most
absolutely.
of it. It's hard to get that kind of work done in a couple of hours. It was a small operation. I grew a lot because I was forced to think for myself, which was good for me because I had that drive. But it really is just this clueless boss is the people that you really have no respect for.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Absolutely. But in my case, I mean, he was smart in a certain way, but he would ask questions of me in meetings or of anybody, and everybody was just staring at him. And you could tell that they were like, kind of an idiot here. And I felt really bad, but at the same time, I eventually just had to start saying, hey, this is how it is. This is the decisions that we need to be making. This is the direction that we need to be taking. And he actually asked me in the exit interview if I had listened to would you be leaving? And I said, probably not, at least not now.
Well, I'm thinking about this right now. When we put this together, we talked about stories that could fit along with it. And we picked two personal stories here because we thought you could relate to them, but also we left both those jobs.
Absolutely. Yes.
So we quit, and it really drives into, you want to make sure you pay attention to this clueless boss character, if you will, because it will impact your employee retention.
I will actually say that this particular boss situation that I was talking about, the turnover there was enormous. I mean, it was a constant churn of employees in and out, in and out, in and out. Some roles, obviously, a lot more than others, but it was like you almost got to the point where you didn't want to invest in getting to know somebody new because you knew that they'd be gone within, 6 months at the most.
let's hold up here for a second because we're talking about these types of workers that are hurting your employee retention. If you want to be a better manager and you want to really create the kind of leadership that people admire, then you want to have a simple framework that we've developed over a few years of working with leaders that will help you increase the employee retention. We call it the STAY framework.
Absolutely. And this framework is super easy, and it's super easy to implement and use every single day with your employees. Because again, at the end of the day, you want to keep them. So we have boiled this down to one page, one simple page you can just easily implement. So sign up and get it below.
There is one thing in there that we have seen that almost every manager is leaving out. They don't even know to include it. They're actually opposed to it. But the power of this one little thing that's inside there that takes about 5 minutes is really a game changer when it comes to employee retention.
Absolutely. I mentioned it when I spoke at a conference recently, and it was just profound to everybody in that audience.
So if you want to get that framework, go to genehammett.com/stay, and you will get the STAY framework that will give that one page kind of cheat sheet that will give you the tools to be a better manager.
All right. So the third type of employee that is killing your retention is the loafer.
The loafer is the person we all know that tries to seem like they're working, but they're never really getting anything done.
Yeah, they are doing the bare minimum in order to survive, in order to continue to collect that paycheck. And it's really frustrating for everybody else because they're actually having to pick up the slack because, this person didn't get things done on time, or they're wandering around the office, drinking coffee and talking to people. And what are they actually doing? What are they actually accomplishing? It's fascinating.
Everyone knows that social butterfly, and they seem to never be really doing the work that they're supposed to be doing. I don't know how, when a manager sits down with that person, that they can actually, not just fire them on the spot.
I think what it is a lot of times they're able to hide. They're able to find themselves into situations with managers who are not having these constant conversations about what's going on. How can we help you?
Well, this reminds me of a story that I was involved with a company that went through a merger, and you bring over two cultures and they combine together. And that happens from time to time. And in this case, this founder was talking about, bringing over a group of people that just didn't seem to fit. And those people were told to really operate in a different way than what they were used to. Mm-hmm. And it really caused a lot of them to just kind of switch off. And so they just collected a paycheck. They showed up day in and day out. They were at the meetings they were supposed to be at. Everything looked from the surface like they were doing what they're supposed to be doing. But we both know the truth. They were just loafing around.
Oh, absolutely. I have plenty of stories about this, whether it's my own personal work history or dealing with companies that I've worked with. But one, stands out in my mind. And this person wandered around, drank coffee, checked Facebook regularly. Constantly was updating Facebook or social media. And it was fascinating because everybody knew who this person was and loved it when they stopped by and chatted for a minute. But at the end of the day, what did this person actually accomplish? I'm still baffled by that.
So we're talking about employee retention. I want to be clear. You want the loafer to leave.
Absolutely. I was so frustrated with the loafer constantly.
But that's exactly the reason why you need to be tuned into this, because that kind of person, that loafer, is driving others away. If you don't have a high enough standard for the work, then others won't take the whole job very seriously. Absolutely. And they'll be looking for a place where they can really be a self-starter. They can really be appreciated for doing the work, and they want to be surrounded by others that are doing the work.
Absolutely. The loafer will drive away your A players. Absolutely. They can't stand to see this. And so, A players want to work with other A players, not with loafers. Got to lose the loafer.
All right. So let's go into number 4, because it is, this is a fun one. We had to put it in there because it happens from time to time. I think you've had more experience with this than I have. But the fourth type of employee that is killing your employee retention is the hothead. That one person that flies off the handle way too quick. They really over exaggerate certain things, and I'll be clear here. You want them to leave too, but you also want to make sure that you're creating a place, an employee experience where these people don't exist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, for one, in this day and age, we need to, employee sense of safety needs to come. It's paramount to everything else. And in certain situations, these hotheads can get pretty extreme and can make you feel unsafe. Now, I worked with a certain hothead, and we found ourselves always walking on eggshells around this person, constantly tiptoeing. Oh, how is he going to react to this? And, some situations he would be great. In other situations, it would just explode. One day, he actually threw a chair in a conference room up against the window. It bounced back and almost hit somebody. But that was actually the day that myself and a few other people decided we were out because of this hothead.
One of the number one factors of team success is psychological safety. Absolutely. This comes from the Aristotle work at Google. It's done with many times over with companies looking at this. So creating a place where this hothead doesn't survive, doesn't last, is a really important part of your leadership.
Absolutely. And, it really is up to the leaders to recognize this kind of behavior and nip it in the bud. Move that person out. This is not something that you want to continue, because other people are constantly thinking about, I've got to go. I've got to get out of here. I can't continue to work with this person.
All right, number 5. I think this one's the hardest to really get your head around, but it is a game changer when you think about this. If you value your culture, then this is the type of person that you must let go of. Number 5 is the toxic superstar.
Yes.
We all have probably worked with people that have rubbed us the wrong way, but they were good at what they did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had a client once where we were sitting around with the CEO and the COO of this small company, about 30 people. And we were talking about, give me the name of 2 people that really give you frustration as a leader. Well, 2 ladies came up. The names came up. I won't share the names. But one of them cried all the time. And I get it. Like, you don't want to have those conversations. And it seemed to be daily that she was crying. And I asked, why was she crying? Well, that gets us back into number 2, which is the toxic superstar. In their world, she was a high performer. She was in recruiting, and she was really able to do the work of 2 to 3 employees, which is impressive. But if it comes at the cost of her being toxic and driving others away, because it was truly, when I listed through how many people had she driven away, it was like 4 in the last 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. Really a very expensive decision to keep that high performer on.
Absolutely. And not only that, let's be very clear. She was specifically named in exit interviews as, this person's the reason I'm leaving.
I asked details because I was curious about this, and there were some expletives that were discussed about how she showed up. There was also the fact that she lied to get work, and she would work extra hours on the weekend to cover this up. This toxic superstar is seductive in the sense that they are performing at a higher level than others. But if it is at the cost of the culture, you as a leader or a manager has to really make some hard decisions, because it is hurting your employee retention.
Absolutely. Just think about the team or the people in her environment. I mean, they are constantly thinking about, I've got to get another job. I've got to get out of here, because, this is not an environment that they want to spend 8 hours a day in plus every single day.
So these are the 5 types of employees that are hurting your employee retention. We went through this. We wanted to have fun with you because you probably got some of these in your workspace right now.
Absolutely.
And I want you to think about this, sit down, maybe jot a few names down. Where do they fit in this? And are they really hurting the employee experience overall? And are they truly costing people to leave the company?
Absolutely. And I think that when you're really honest about this and you really start thinking about the different people that would fall into these 5 categories, it might scare you a little bit, honestly.
So you may be thinking about, what do you do with all this? Because this is not a traditional episode where we're interviewing people. This is not your traditional episode where we're giving you the step-by-step. Because what we wanted to let you know is we've created, through a partnership, a training about employee retention. And it really is something I'm really proud of. It comes along with the STAY framework that we've mentioned. That STAY framework will help you be a better leader tomorrow. You can literally download it today and use it in your next conversation, and you will see impact right away.
Absolutely. This is something that we have put together through trial and error over the years, working with our own company, working with other companies, and really seeing what are these managers and leaders that are the highest performers that have melded together a team that is just trucking along and is just super efficient and really seems to just go at it every single day. What are they doing? So what are some of their best practices? So we have pulled them together, and let me tell you, some of these are ridiculously easy, and it is shocking to me every single day when I see leaders and managers not doing this. And then yet they're also complaining, I can't keep my people. Well, here is the answer, and it is super easy.
The STAY framework can be downloaded at genehammett.com/stay. Well, that wraps up this episode. Really excited to be able to share this work with you, to come together with my beautiful wife. I really have a lot of respect for what she's done in the corporate world, and really wanted to share something with you because I feel like you could be the leaders that you really wanted to be by understanding these types of employees, but more by getting that STAY framework. So make sure you go ahead and do that.
Absolutely. And of course, join us for the free training that we will be doing along with that. And we'll be including our partners, Velocity Global. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.
As always, lead with courage.